And the South African Football Association has weighed in on the SASCOC board election saga on the weekend, where reports surfaced that Canoeing South Africa have called on other sports federations to support a vote of no confidence in the board. SAFA have said that the National Olympic and Paralympic body should be using their money for athletes and not for court battles. I spoke to acting CEO of SASCOC, Ravi Govender, yesterday on Skype.
There are two disputes that currently sits before SASCOC. The one dispute is regards to non-eligible nominees who have disputed that they should not be non-eligible. Now, very quickly, that process is completely independent of SASCOC. As per the Constitution, we've appointed a firm of external auditors who administered the process, in other words, received the nominations, and we had an independent nominations committee made up of legal expertise, and they evaluated the nominations and reported. The report came back that 5 nominees were found to be ineligible, 3 of them for not having complied with the timeframes in terms of their submission, and 2 of them having not fully complied with the documentation requirement. Now, in terms of the Constitution, the SASCOC Constitution, those that have been found to be non-eligible are entitled to dispute their non-eligibility, which they've done. They've invoked Clause 29 of the Constitution. They have collectively not objected to the arbitrator that has been appointed. That process started, or rather the information was submitted to the arbitrator on the 23rd of April, this past week, and any day now we expect a response. So, Valen, there was no interference. The process is constitutionally correct, and it will stand up to scrutiny. So that's the one process. The second process, which falls slightly outside of the nomination procedures itself. There was a complaint by a Tennis South Africa board member, Ms. M.E. Ravelli. She wrote to her board as well as the minister, complaining that she is being blocked from submitting her nomination. In other words, her nomination hadn't even gone into the pool. Okay. The minister then referred that complaint to SASCOC for further investigation. The SASCOC board then took legal opinion on the veracity of the complaint by Ms. Ravelli, and that complaint and that legal opinion was received by the board. In fact, Mr. Hendricks also supported the calling for an opinion. Okay. And so the board, including Mr. Hendricks at that time, were favored the obtaining of an opinion. The opinion came back, and there are 2 parts to the opinion, right? The one part is where the advocate concluded that Ms. Ravelli may take a complaint to a dispute resolution. In other words, there is sufficient grounds for her complaint to be heard through a process. Here again, SASCOC invoked Clause 29 of the Constitution. All 3 parties that are in that opinion have agreed to a common arbitrator, and that process has already commenced. So that process also is independent of SASCOC, and there was no way that SASCOC can interfere with that process. The second part of that, and this is important, Valen, the second part of that opinion implicates, and I can speak about Mr. Hendricks because he's our board member and the acting president at that time, who's based on special leave. The second part of the opinion recorded certain findings that suggest unprofessional behavior. And it is that process that SASCOC has now referred to its judicial committee for investigation. There too, that will be run by the Judicial Commission, and a process will unfold as guided and agreed by the prescripts of the Constitution. So those are the 3 processes.
Ravi, everybody can hear that you, as a representative of SASCOC and the board, have worked very hard to do things according to the Constitution and have tried to do it right. But it just seems as if you're getting caught up in this web of bureaucracy, and it seems to be certainly spilling over to have a very negative effect on the Olympic body.
That's rather unfortunate, Valen, and I cannot deny that. It would be incorrect to do so. We just received a letter from the IOC, co-signed by the IPC. It arrived with us 2 days ago, or thereabout, and they have actually pledged support for SASCOC to continue with its internal processes, and that any interference in these processes will be unwarranted, unconstitutional, and not in good order. Those letters are before the board at the moment, and they would then disseminate the information as deemed appropriate.
Considering the funds that are now being used for the judicial processes that you guys find yourselves in as SASCOC because of the elections, which hasn't really gone as you would have hoped that they would have gone, are you confident that you're going to be able to present an Olympic and Paralympic team next year?
Velen, just to answer the first part of your question, the SASCOC, and particularly its board, is extremely mindful about our limited fundings, and it's extremely mindful of spending our money in areas that we shouldn't be spending. And that is why the processes that we are going through now, we are trying to internalize them. And when I say internalize, maintain the independence in terms of the constitution, but use the services of our internal mechanisms. So we are very mindful of that, and the board took a resolution that we will no longer be spending money externally on legal matters, and we are going to do everything possible to curtail those costs. As far as Team SA is concerned, as I mentioned before, the bad connection, in our media build-up and information we disseminated to the public in building up to the July IOC Games and the IPC Games thereafter, we illustrated our game plan, we illustrated our business strategy, and we ticked all the green boxes in terms of being in that stadium in July in Tokyo. I am confident that the same process will continue for the games that are going to be held in 2021.
And that was Ravi Govender, the acting CEO for the National Olympic and Paralympic Committee, known as SASCOC. Let's continue our